Good morning, everybody. That is Man Coverage. It is Sunday, October 8th, week number 6 in college football. We are live from Kyle Field in College Station after another Bama victory. I kind of remember a lot of people, James, talking about how the Bama dynasty was over, how Jalen Milroe sucks, how Nick Saban needs to retire. But yet Bama's still winning. I'm pretty sure, and I got to be honest with you. You recall that I do these sports memorabilia shows on the weekend, and I was sitting at my booth, minding my own business, listening to the two Nimrods next to me talk about how horrible of a quarterback Jalen Milroe was. This was the week that he got benched. And I was sitting there going, man, these two guys I'm not even going to say anything because they absolutely have zero clue of what the F they're talking about. I just let it play out. And here we are. What is this, 4 weeks later? And he's lighting up one of the statistically best defenses in the country right here in Kyle Field at Texas A&M, throwing for, 321 yards, 3 touchdowns. Didn't even really run that much. In fact, I think he had negative yardage running the football, but he sat in the pocket and delivered. What were your thoughts about the Bama Texas A&M game? What were your thoughts about Jalen Milroe, and what are your thoughts about where Bama is right now, especially considering the landscape of the SEC and the SEC West?
Well, I look at the SEC as a whole, and quite frankly, it's not up to par of what it once was. Um, but I think people, that's the problem is you've had such a good string of quarterbacks come through Alabama. I mean, premier type quarterbacks like Bryce Young, Jalen Hurts, Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, you're talking first round draft pick, first round draft pick, first round draft pick, second round draft pick. I mean, is the scale now premier, and then there's automatically it goes from first to second goes sucks? I mean, is Jalen Milroe Jalen Hurts? No,
No.
but he's still a pretty goddamn good quarterback. I
He's
mean,
actually getting better and getting close to playing similar to Jalen Hurts, but he's not that good. No.
yeah, I mean, it's just we can't have this grading scale of holy crap. And I'd put Ohio State fans in the same mix of this.
Yeah.
Kyle McCord is he Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, or CJ Stroud? No, but he's a decent quarterback. Would I like him to get going faster in games? Yeah, but I mean, you can't go from an A to an F and that's your grading scale. I mean, that's ridiculous. And I think Milroe played. I mean, did he have some bad throws yesterday? Yeah, but I mean, Jermaine Burton showed up. I mean, 321 yards passing from this offense is quite frankly amazing. But I look at this game less on the Nick Saban standpoint and more of, you know, Jimbo Fisher and this was definitely a game where Jimbo Fisher and their new OC did not see eye to eye. I mean, I go back to the end of the game. Why in the hell are you calling a timeout on fourth down and then kick a field goal? I mean, that is like the dumbest freaking thing in the world. Or that one time where
You got to punch it in right there.
yeah,
You have
exactly.
to punch it
You've got to
in. First off, you were at the 2 yard line to begin with, and then you get a penalty and you get
yeah.
moved back, and then you finally run a nice play and get back up there, and you kick a field goal. So I agree with you. I thought the coaching at the end of the game by the A&M staff was bad. I think you got two guys in Bobby Petrino and Jimbo who kind of button heads a little bit. We kind of thought that would happen, but this is another opportunity that A&M had to win a game. And
Yeah.
they're in that, when he was in the ACC, he could beat people because he had better talent, and they would outscore folks, and it just would be no big deal. But I think it's kind of exposed his coaching a little bit being in the SEC West, because you can't f stuff up when you're in charge, because you won't win the games when you're playing coaches like Nick Saban.
Well, I mean, I go back to Jimbo's time at Florida State, and after the national championship year, their offensive line just was not good. And it was not good, I mean, up until now. I mean, it's not like yesterday Jameis Winston was playing quarterback in Tallahassee.
No.
It's been a minute. And it's been that long. And you look at A&M, their offensive line on paper should be freaking great. And Alabama might as well have had a mortgage. They were in their backfield that much. I mean,
all day.
I mean, I felt bad for Max Johnson because in College Station, he is getting ripped on left and right. It ain't his fault when he can't even set his freaking feet. Ever.
I thought he did pretty well.
I did too.
Considering all the pressure he was under and how many times, I think he was sacked. I think he was sacked 5 times.
Yeah.
But he could have easily been sacked 8 or more, considering what was going down.
Yeah, I mean, A&M's got issues, and they all revolve around their head coach. I mean, honestly, granted, how do you buy him out?
You can't.
You can't. I mean, well, granted, A&M's got cash, but who's going to want to pay that paycheck? I don't care who you are. No one's going to want to spend that money to get rid of a guy, because whoever you bring in next, they better be winning right away.
Well, who are you going to bring in that's better than him and going to win immediately? Because you can't spend $77 million to get rid of someone and not have instant success, in my opinion.
Agreed. I mean, the only guy I could think of would be Mike Elko, but man, even with Mike Elko, that's a big ask.
That's a lot of pressure on him to go from being at Duke and getting awards for winning 8 or 9 games to going to A&M and having to beat Bama, every year. That's a big. I don't know. That just seems like a lot for him.
Well, I think Riley I think Mike Elko gets more credit than he deserves, because look at Riley Leonard. I mean, he's a very good quarterback as a whole. I mean, but you look back at A&M, where do they go from here? I mean, even though they lost, it's just, it seems like the same mistakes you're seeing from years past. Now, do I think they're going to go 8-4 or better? Yeah, but they don't feel like they're taking that next step.
This is a team that, as you mentioned previously, on paper has a lot of talent. This is a team that's got 5 stars all over. They've got 5 stars at defensive line. They've got 5 stars at wide receiver. They've got 5 stars, in the secondary. This is a team that on paper should be better than they are. I mean, Johnson's brother, the tight end, he was very heavily recruited as well. Yeah. You've got him. You've got Evan Stewart. You've got the kid from here in Knoxville, Tennessee, Walter Nolan. He was the number 1 player in the entire country. He made a couple of plays yesterday. It's just they're not getting the most out of these kids, in my opinion, and that falls back on the coach.
Well, I look at a perfect example as Devin Achane, the starting running back last year at A&M, who is really talented, and he never got to show himself. And now look at him in the NFL. I mean, he is fantasy freaking gold. I mean, that guy's putting up yards like nobody's business, yet nobody really knew about him if you're the casual football fan, because A&M just was a freaking train wreck last year or last few years.
Yeah, he's running for 200 yards a game.
Yeah.
In the NFL, and they never really leaned on him as much as they should, in my opinion. And yesterday, they didn't run the ball very well.
No.
They had 67 yards rushing the entire day, and as you mentioned, Max Johnson, 14 of 25, 239. That was pretty good considering the pressure that he was under. I mean, it looked to me like the Alabama defense. They weren't even blitzing linebackers.
No,
they were getting home with their front 4 all day long. I mean, you had Turner was back there. I think he had at least one or 2 sacks. It was just nonstop backfield football for the D line in Alabama, and that shouldn't be happening. I mean, run a screen. I mean, do something to kind of you got to understand what's happening. And I was just like, they're just getting railroaded up front, And instead of running plays, run a draw, run a screen, run something that takes advantage of the aggressiveness of Alabama. And they just never seemed to do that. And I was confused as to why.
Heck, I would say run a jet sweep to Aeneas Smith. I mean, that guy is just a burner. I mean, we saw that in previous years. He's got real speed, and they're not using it. They're not using the speed they have. I mean, hell, look at the speed they had last year with Achane. I mean, unless you've been living underneath a rock, they've been showing Achane has been faster than Tyreek Hill, and Tyreek Hill's kind of fast, unless you don't know football. I mean, how is it you're not utilizing that kind of speed that they've recruited over the last few years? So, I mean, I look at this game as just, Alabama. I mean, I look at Alabama and I'm like, I don't know how they don't win the West, honestly.
They are good. They're the best team in the West, as we said, after the Texas loss, when everybody was ready to give up on them and was talking about how, horrible they were and how Jalen Milroe was pitiful and how they were done and the dynasty was over. We both said that we still thought they were the best team in the West. And I stand by that. I think they are the best team in the West. And I think they're going to be in Atlanta come the end of the season. And they keep as we talked about at length, they're getting better every week. It's like the defense gets a little bit better. The offense improves. Tommy Rees has kind of figured out what plays work for Jalen Milroe and what plays don't. Since he doesn't have to bench him each week anymore, he can actually, tailor the offense to the guy that's playing.
Yeah. He doesn't have to force Tyler Buckner out there. And let's be honest. I mean, Tyler Buckner, I know you're a 4-star, but man, how he has not developed one iota since his freshman year at Notre Dame. And I just sit there, I'm like, just give the ball to Milroe and just roll. Because, I mean, who's their hardest game on the way out? I mean, Auburn?
I guess. I mean, they play Arkansas next week, correct?
Oh, they'll steamroll them.
I agree. I think they'll beat the tar out of them. They play pretty much nobody. I mean, they play Tennessee the 21st at home. They play LSU. I think Tennessee and LSU are both a little bit better than Auburn, honestly.
Yeah, I would say you're right. I mean, I wouldn't say LSU, but I mean,
LSU can score some points now.
Yeah, but I question them on the line of scrimmage defensively. I mean, they gave up 36 to freaking Missouri. I mean, come on.
I have to admit that Missouri is better than I gave them credit for. But
I don't disagree. But, I mean, you look at their schedule. They have played they played well against Kansas State. I'll give them that.
Yes.
But, I mean, you watch that Friday night game against Oklahoma State and Kansas State. They just don't seem crisp like Kansas State usually does. They're making dumb mistakes.
Yeah, but I mean, who's the third best team in the East?
God, I hate to say it, Florida. I mean,
what?
Who else do you put in the East? I mean, Kentucky's 2, but yeah, no,
Kentucky is not 2.
Who would you put 2? Tennessee.
I'd put Tennessee ahead of Kentucky.
Yeah, I'd put Tennessee.
You can't,
you're right.
You can't watch that game yesterday and tell me that Kentucky is legit. I mean,
Kentucky.
This is the same. We'll get to Kentucky in a minute.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think Missouri's in the top 3, maybe 4 of the East, and that's just because the East is garbage.
It's a dumpster fire.
It's garbage once again.
I mean, trying to pick who's second. I mean, Tennessee, I thought would be a little bit better, but man,
they're not. It's not the same offense.
No, it's well. I mean,
they had.
How much did we talk about how good Hendon Hooker was last year? I think people forget how freaking good he was and how good he was, like not turning over the ball. I mean, he was going deep, but he still wasn't turning over the freaking ball. I mean, Joe Milton, big arm, but he's no freaking Hendon Hooker.
No, he's not. He's not the problem in Knoxville for sure. But he's not Hendon Hooker. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
And then losing Brew McCoy,
That hurt.
Trouble on the offensive line. That
Yeah.
offensive line is way better run blocking than they are pass blocking.
Yes.
And we'll see what Tennessee does going forward, as they've got some big time games still coming up. And that one against Bama is going to be interesting, but I have a hard time believing that Coach Heupel's going to get Nick Saban 2 years in a row.
In Bama, I mean, it was one thing beating them in Knoxville, but in Bama is going to be tough.
Yeah, the stars aligned in that game. I was at it. I was there. I was watching it. Everything kind of went their way down the stretch. They got the ball last. That was key. Bama missed a field goal. Everybody forgets. If they'd hit that field goal, Tennessee would have had to hit the field goal to tie, and there would have been a little bit more pressure on the dude. So we'll see what happens there. But a very, very good game by Jalen Milroe. I think he's still not the greatest, passer in the world. I've never said that. I just said that the kid is talented. I said that the kid is legit, and I said the kid is going to get better if you don't bench him. He's going to improve, and it looks to me like he's getting better.
Yeah. No, I mean, last year I was pretty hard on him just because his passing game was pretty pedestrian.
It was read one and take off.
Yeah. But this year he looks better. I mean, I like how they put Jermaine Burton more featured in the offense, because I mean, Jermaine Burton never got really chance to show himself in Georgia because he was such a vertical guy, and they just like keeping things between the hashes. So they weren't a vertical team. So
one question, we were talking SEC East and SEC West and all that garbage. Is the Big Ten East the toughest division in college football, in your opinion? Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State.
Honestly, I'd put the Pac-12 over it. But the top
Which
end
division? Which division?
Well, they don't have divisions.
I know, but I'm saying of divisions.
If you go pure divisions, the Big Ten East. I mean,
okay.
the top. I mean, Maryland, I would honestly say right now is probably the fourth best team in the Big Ten.
I agree. I
mean, Talia is a good quarterback, but I mean, the problem with Maryland I've always had is on their line of scrimmage. I mean, they've always had receivers. They've always had that speed of tail in their back end on their secondary, but their front line has always been their biggest problem since they've come to the Big Ten, and they've never truly addressed it.
Well, if he doesn't throw two pick sixes one pick six and another pick that set him up inside the 40, they potentially win that game yesterday. So
yeah.
Maryland's impressed me. I thought they had a really good game plan. I thought the team was well coached yesterday, and I do agree with you. I think they're the fourth best team in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I would. I mean, quite frankly, I think it's a huge gap between fourth and fifth too.
I also agree. It's pretty crazy to me how far that gap is.
I mean, the Big Ten West is a dumpster fire right now.
It's a joke.
I honestly, God, I don't know who wins the Big Ten West.
It's a joke.
I have no clue.
Doesn't matter. It hasn't mattered in like 4 or 5 years. Whoever it is goes to Chicago or Indianapolis or wherever the hell the game is and gets their asses kicked.
Yeah.
So I don't even really know why they play that game. It's pointless at this point in time. But that'll all get corrected next year with the influx of teams into the Big Ten. Speaking about two teams that are on the move from conference to conference, and me and you have talked about it ad nauseum, Oklahoma and Texas might be the two best teams in the SEC if they were there this year.
Yeah.
And yesterday's game did not disappoint. Pretty good football game, honestly, between Oklahoma and Texas. I was a little bit disappointed with Quinn Ewers. He's been, getting blown all season long, and he was disappointing yesterday. But I thought that the game plan was solid. I thought the rest of the team played pretty good, and I was pretty impressed with the effort that Texas put forth. But this to me was more about Oklahoma than it was about Texas. I think that people underestimated Oklahoma. I think people dog them for the season they had last year, where they did the games they did lose, they weren't getting blown out, and really they only struggled after their quarterback went down. And yesterday, I think they proved that they are a solid football team and they deserve to get a little bit more credit. What do you think about where Oklahoma is at right now, and what did you think about the game yesterday from start to finish?
I thought it was the best game all day, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think there was a big drop off by Texas. I thought Texas looked decent.
Yeah.
I think everybody is so focused on Quinn Ewers and that great receiving core they have between Worthy and Whittington and Sanders. But the name that I keep coming back to, who really is the straw that stirs the drink, is Jonathan Brooks.
He's unbelievable.
I mean, honestly, he, in my opinion, is this year's Tajay Spears. I mean, he is just week after week after week. And I heard somebody before the game saying if Texas wins, Jonathan Brooks should be getting serious consideration for the Heisman. And I'm not going to lie, I don't disagree with him. I think he's the best running back in the country right now. He is putting up monster yards, and you never got a chance to see him because of Roshan Brooks and Bijan Robinson.
Bijan Robinson, yeah. Bijan Robinson was a top 10 pick.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I was like, there's no way they can get the same production. Yeah, there's going to be a drop off. There's no way they're going to get the same type of production out of that position, and they most certainly are.
I mean, quite frankly, I think Brooks is better than Bijan Robinson. Honestly, I know that's a really hot take, but man, that kid is good. That kid is so good on so many levels. But you look at Oklahoma yesterday. I mean, honestly, Dylan Gabriel basically did what he had to do. I mean, Texas ran a certain offense. He didn't try to, if they gave him underneath, he was going to take underneath. If he had to run, he ran. I'm a little shocked they didn't have a spy on him. Especially after the first half, because I mean he was getting huge chunks of yards, and he's been known to run even back to his Central Florida days. I mean, you really look at this game, Dylan Gabriel's the reason why they won.
Oh, he most certainly is, and I don't think he's getting the credit that he deserves. I mean, 23 of 38, 285, one touchdown in the air. Then he ran 14 times for 113 yards and another touchdown. He didn't turn the ball over. He made good decisions. He didn't wilt under pressure. I don't know why more people aren't talking about this kid, because he's the real deal. He put up gaudy numbers at Central Florida, and he's continuing to get better as he plays at Oklahoma. I mean, how good do you think this guy is, James?
He is looking a lot like his time at I mean, honestly, you look at his freshman year at Central Florida, there's a lot of similarities, and Jeff Lebby really did a great job working with him there. And he's starting to show that confidence once again in Norman. I mean, last year nothing. I mean, there were a lot of injuries. Defense never seemed to click with Venapol's new system. It just didn't really click. And now he really is. I mean, quite frankly, I look at that Texas-Oklahoma game, and this is basically round one of this matchup, because they're going to go up against each other in the Big 12 championship in Jerry World. And honestly, right now, I think I would lean slightly to Texas, because you look at what they got on paper, but I mean, Oklahoma is much better than they were last year. Much, much better.
Yeah, the defense especially is much improved.
Well, I mean, you look at this game, you can't tell me whoever wins this game in the Big 12 championship will be in the college football playoff, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I don't think Texas is necessarily done just because they lost this game, because they don't play anybody the rest of the season.
Yeah.
And so if they get to the Big 12 championship and they play Oklahoma again and they beat them, who the hell do you take? Which team do you take? That's my question.
I mean, this is going to be a year where they're going to have a hard time filling the four. Like, this is a year we wish
this would have been the perfect year to start the 12 team.
Exactly. 100%.
This is the first time in 10 years where they actually have at least 10 teams that can compete for the national championship. And honestly, you could find two others. So I really wish they were starting 12 team this year.
Yeah, 100%. Agreed.
So There's more about this game that we could get into, but really, I think we need to move on because we have to talk a little bit about what happened down in Coral Gables. Why do you not take a knee here, James? It's 3rd and 10.
To quote Bud Elliott from the Cover 3 podcast, Mario Cristobal is the greatest coach between March and August, and probably one of the worst in-game coaches between September and December.
Well, he's not calling plays, is he?
I mean, this is just awful.
Why do you not take a knee? It's 3rd and 10. You've won the game.
I sit there and I'm like, this is just, I mean, they outgained Georgia Tech by 300 yards and you lose.
Well,
how is that possible?
Not only should you have taken a knee, but let me ask you another question. What the hell are they doing here? Why is there nobody deep? Watch this. He throws the ball. This guy's running free.
I sat there and I'm like, what in the, I mean.
And their fans are throwing things down in the field. Throw them at the coaching staff. Don't throw them at the players. I mean, they won that game.
Yeah.
I've got to watch it again. I just cannot for the life of me understand how you don't take a knee right there.
I don't either.
The game is over if you take a knee. You don't have to run another play. This is what I wanted to get into with you when we started talking about this game. Okay, Mario Cristobal, he had a pretty good go of it there at Oregon. He came into the shoe and beat Ohio State. He had a really good team that year. They had Kayvon Thibodeau on the edge. They had CJ Vardell, the running back. They had the other running back that transferred to USC after Cristobal left. They had a decent quarterback, who now plays for the Ravens. Backs up Lamar. So, they had good talent and he handled that talent pretty well. But I think that we need to start going back to the old days when guys would have to earn their jobs. Now you have like 1-2 good years and all of a sudden somebody's throwing millions of dollars at you and putting you in charge of resurrecting their program. I mean, I'm just not sure he proved to me anyway that he could bring back Miami. Now, I know he's from down there. I know he's got ties to Miami, all of that, but I think it's being proven time and time again, especially after that horrible season they had last year when they had tons of talent. And then this year, losing to Georgia Tech, who's horrible. What are your thoughts? I mean, the same thing happened to Michigan State. They had one, they went out and got Mel Tucker. He had one, fairly decent year. They give him $95 million, and then they're using entrapment to get him fired. I just don't get it.
I think with the transfer portal the way it is and with NIL, building a team for 3-4 years is done. I think you have to win right away. And I think it is scaring a lot of boosters, a lot of athletic departments wholeheartedly. I mean, heck, you could add Texas A&M to that mix too as well. I mean, unless they got 80 million hide under the mattress to pay off Jimbo. You look at it from a basketball perspective. You saw Roy Williams, Coach K, retire. I think those older school coaches, because the game is completely different now. I mean, in 5 years, the game is incredibly different because not only do you have to recruit the kid to your school, you got to keep recruiting your kid to stay at your school. Yeah. And I mean, whoever thought Brent Key would have a winning record this year? I mean, people were thinking Georgia Tech was going to be bottom of the barrel, maybe Virginia status.
Yeah.
And they are Virginia Tech. And look at what they're doing. They have a realistic shot of making a bowl game.
That's hard to even say, isn't it? I just could not believe this when I watched the end of it. I was like, what is happening? I turned to it because I was like, well, there's a couple of seconds left here. I was like, I'll watch the end of it, just to see what the final score is and what all goes down. And then I'm like, okay, well, that's it. I'm about to change the channel. I'm like, is he handing that ball off? Why on earth is he handing the ball off? And I mean, they deserved what they got. You run the ball there, you deserve to lose the game.
If I'm Jimbo Fisher right now, I am sending a gift basket to Mario Cristobal because people will be talking about Jimbo Fisher today. Instead, they're talking about Mario Cristobal and how freaking moronic of a move that was.
Yeah, it was.
Hey,
And
I'll take $7 million a year to do something that stupid too as well.
I could easily F up a game that bad for much less money.
Yeah.
I mean, you could pay me $1 million and I will cost you games.
3.5 million Miami. I'll be in Coral Gables by nightfall.
Yeah, I will lose to Georgia Tech every year for you.
Yeah,
for $1.5 million. I mean, you don't have to pay that guy that much. Just give me basically nothing, and just give me team game use gear, and I'll lose to the Ramblin' Wreck. Okay, so that was horrible. We've talked about the horrible coaching jobs. Let's talk about the really good coaching jobs because, God damn, the Louisville Cardinal were not only prepared for this game, the game plan was second to none. They knew that they were a better team than Notre Dame up front, and they just went after it and used that to their advantage all day long. They ran the football on the Irish. They shut down the run. We knew, you've said it a million times, that Coach Brom is a fabulous coach. He overachieved at Purdue, and by God, he's overachieving in year two here, or year one. Year one. I almost said year two because it looked like year two. Year one at Louisville. What did you think about the game in its totality yesterday in Notre Dame? Because they just kicked their ass, and I was really impressed with Coach Brom.
You know what's funny is I never even realized this till I started scrolling through their box score. Audric Estime had 10 carries for 20 yards.
Yeah.
You look at Notre Dame through the Brian Kelly era. I mean, you go back eras. What is their strength always? Is line of scrimmage. And Louisville plain mollywhopped them. I mean, they took their strength and put it right against them. I mean, Estime was putting up monster yards every week. He's got old school big running back. And I mean, 227. I mean, you look at his games prior. I mean, he was putting up monster yards. And he went 10 for 20. I mean, holy crap. I sit there and look at this game and I'm like, my God. I mean, he ran for 134 on 14 carries against NC State, who's got a good line of scrimmage play. He had over 5 yards to carry against Ohio State and goes for 20 against Louisville. Jeff Brom is such a good coach.
He's a really good coach. And it wasn't just defensively. I mean, their offense played fabulous too, but they finished the game with 5 sacks. But this is just like, we were talking about Bama versus Texas A&M. It was like almost the same game. Yeah. Because the Louisville defensive line was in the backfield for Notre Dame the entire game. Now, Sam Hartman made some bad decisions, but you can't really fault the guy. I don't know if you saw the shot on the sideline. He had blood running out of his ear because he'd gotten hit so hard that there was like blood just trickling out of his ear. And I thought it was a great shot on the sideline because he was getting his asshole kicked all game long. And I felt bad for him because he looked horrible, but it really wasn't 100% his fault. First off, the receiving core for Notre Dame is god awful.
Oh God, yeah.
We've talked about it all year. They've got, they moved Tyree from running back to wide receiver because of the lack of depth at the position, which I said was a mistake. You had Estime and Tyree. It was like a chain. It's like the thunder and lightning kind of, 1-2 punch at running back. And I really liked that. And you broke that up. I don't know if you saw yesterday, Hartman hit Tyree right in the hands, walking into the end zone, and he dropped it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that guy dropped that because he's a running back, and he's not used to running fly patterns, catching bombs. And I felt bad for the kid. But I felt like, too, not only did they just dismantle them on the line, but to me, it felt like this team was, more prepared. Coach Brom had a better game plan. He had his kids much more ready to play than Coach Freeman did. I'm going to give Notre Dame a little bit of a pass here. Not a pass, but I am going to say that you have to take into account what they've been through the last few weeks. The Ohio State game, I think, took a lot of energy out of them, and then they had to travel to Duke, and it took everything they had to win that game. It looked to me like they were a little bit drained. Do you agree with that, or am I crazy?
No, I don't disagree with you one bit, but how do you underestimate Jeff Brom? I mean, hell, look at his last year at Purdue when he had no David Bell, no Rondell Moore, and they still found a way to make it to the Big Ten championship game. I mean, wait till he starts bringing in. I mean, hell, he developed a walk-on in Aiden O'Connell into being a starting quarterback in the NFL this season. I mean,
yeah.
That guy, I mean, receivers are coming to Louisville. It's only a matter of time.
There's no doubt. And, this, Jack Plummer,
yeah.
He wasn't fabulous, but he did what he was supposed to do. He didn't turn the ball over. He just kind of methodically led the drives down the field. I thought, everybody coming in was talking about the transfer quarterback for Notre Dame, but the transfer quarterback for Louisville certainly, did his part, and he wasn't fabulous by any stretch, but he did what Coach Brom told him to do. And I thought it was just a fantastically coached game, and good for Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, people forget Plummer played for Brom at Purdue.
Correct.
I mean, I remember watching him and O'Connell battling it out, and I thought Plummer was just as good. I mean, do they have all the ingredients on that offense? No. I mean, Louisville's going to be a team to beat in the years ahead. I mean, Jeff Brom is so underrated as a head coach, and he's never going to leave Louisville. I mean, hell, born and raised, he's never leaving Louisville.
He shouldn't. They should give him a big ass contract. They've got money there. This is a program that's got a storied basketball program in history, and then they've had some good football teams over the years. They've got some donors there with old Papa John who can throw some cash into the program, and they brought 25 new transfers in who have rebuilt this team in 1 year. Wait till he gets his own recruits in there.
I know.
Wait till he gets another year of using the portal. It's going to be kind of scary. And that running back, Jawar Jordan, 21 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns, had a 45-yard touchdown that was kind of the dagger. That kid had a heck of a game. I got a question, too. Is Jamari Thrash, is that James Thrash's son?
I was wondering that exact same thing. I got to look.
He kind of looked like him.
Yeah, he does. He plays like him, too, as well. I never even thought about that until – let's see here, James Thrash. Let me look him up.
Okay. I just thought that because I lived in Philadelphia when Thrash played for the Eagles, and I just saw him and I was like, is that his son? Because I'm so old now that everybody that I watch play, their kids or their grandkids are playing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where we're at. So I didn't know. But Louisville is now quietly 6-0. I guess the pollsters are glad that they put him at 25 because that made it look at least okay. But they've got Pitt next week, and then they've got a week off, and then they play Duke at home, Virginia Tech, Virginia, Miami, and then Kentucky. I could see Louisville potentially, going 10-2, maybe 11-1. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Duke could beat them. Maybe Miami or Kentucky might be able to squeeze a victory out. I don't know. I mean, Kentucky, we'll talk about them next. But Louisville's going to win 9 or 10 games this year, don't you think?
I if they don't hit 10, I'd be shocked.
Yeah.
Honestly. I mean, mark Virginia and Virginia Tech down as wins. Pitt, you never know what shows up. They got Duke at home. I mean, I would say the Miami game, but I mean, after what we saw yesterday, I mean, with Miami, I don't know. I look at the schedule. I mean, crap. There's a realistic chance they could be going 12-0 into the ACC championship against Florida State. Isn't that crazy in year one?
That's absolutely nuts. But it doesn't seem crazy to me after watching that game yesterday and watching them just toss around the offensive line and the defensive line for Notre Dame. I mean, is Notre Dame the greatest team in the country? No, but they've proven to have a pretty good play up front, and they just shoved them around all day long. And the final score was 33-20, but Notre Dame scored a touchdown late. I mean, it was 33-13 really. They gave up that late score that meant absolutely nothing, and this game wasn't even that close.
Yeah.
So kudos to Coach Brom and his staff at Louisville. It was just one of the best coach games that I've seen in a long time, and the man deserves a lot of credit. Let's go to another team that was ranked in the top 20, and this seems to happen every year, James. We get the Kentucky Wildcats football team. Bobby Stoops, his brother, is making a lot of money over there. He makes more money than John Calipari, in case you didn't know. John Calipari makes like $9 million a year, and Mark Stoops makes more than him. And every year they start off. They get one more thing about Louisville. Who the hell is Jack Harlow? Am I the only person who doesn't know who that is?
He's a rapper. Plus, he was in White Man Can't Jump, the remake, which was, I mean, honest to God, embarrassing. I mean,
I did not see that one. They kept showing this guy in the stands. They're like, "There's Donovan Mitchell. Oh, and he's hanging out with Jack Harlow." And I'm like, "Who the fuck is Jack Harlow?" And I was like, the only person who didn't know he was.
Trust me, you dodged a bullet watching the remake of White Man Can't Jump. I mean, it was so bad.
It wasn't that great of a movie to begin with. I mean, the original wasn't like a cinematic dream or anything with Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson at the helm, but it was kind of a cliche movie or whatever. But whatever, I just didn't know who that guy was. But back to my point, Stoops, they start off every year like 5-0, 6-0. They put them up in the top 10, the top 20, the top 15 because they're in the SEC. But let's go back and talk about who they beat. Okay. Ball State was week 1. They beat Eastern Kentucky week 2.
By 11.
By 11. They beat who is that?
Akron.
Akron. Yeah, they beat Akron Zips week 3. They won at Vandy 45-28. And then they, had a decent game against Florida, who honestly had no business being ranked. But really the only team they beat with a pulse was Florida. And that was just a horrible game by the Gators. And they find themselves a top 20 team. And then they go out yesterday and, a team in Georgia who's struggled against pretty much most everybody they've played thus far. And it didn't even look like a football game. It looked like a high school team playing a collegiate team. What did you think about the Wildcats yesterday and their performance against Georgia?
608 yards to 183 yards. 33 first downs to 12 first downs. They were 2 of 11 for third down. And you were out, time of possession was 37-22. Tell me, you're looking at those statistics, how in the hell are you ranked?
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, that was calling it 51-13 makes it sound somewhat close.
And it was not.
They got curb stomped. I mean, this is going to be one where you're going to see Brock Bowers on draft day. They're going to show highlights of this game over and over and over again.
All day long.
And, I mean, if you don't know who Brock Bowers is, you obviously don't know college football or you're dead. It's one of the two. And they didn't even try to cover him yesterday. I mean, how is that humanly possible? A tight end going, 7 catches for what was it?
132.
132.
He averaged 19 yards a reception. And he's their best player. And you don't bracket him. You don't put a safety on him. I mean, I know he's tough to cover. Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He's going to get his yards, but 19 yards a carry. He had a 50-yard catch. This is a team in Georgia that struggled a little bit offensively this year, and they made that Kentucky defense look like Swiss cheese. And I don't understand. I get it. In years past, the SEC has been a very strong conference. Maybe not from top to bottom, but at least at the top. And I understood sometimes throwing teams a bone just because of them being in the conference and having to play some of these teams. But you can't just put some team at number 20 because they're in a conference. That's just stupid.
Well, that's what we're doing now. I mean, we got Ole Miss at 16, and they're probably going to go up after beating Arkansas, who's really not good. I mean, I'm sorry. Ole Miss. I mean, granted, there is the old adage, you have to put somebody there, but Ole Miss and Kentucky? I mean, come on, folks. They're not even trying.
No, they're not. And speaking of teams that weren't even trying, I guess we got to talk about your game yesterday. I did hear Coach Fleck come out and say that was the best football team I've seen in my 11 years as being a head coach. Okay. I'll give them credit. I mean, they're good. They're a very good football team, and they played a great game yesterday. I watched it. I went back and watched the no huddle version, and they're hitting on all cylinders right now. There's no doubt about it. The level of competition they played, I still have some question marks about, but their ability to execute their offense and defensive game plans has been stellar, and I'll give Michigan credit for that. I'll even say the name. But my problem right now is with Coach Fleck. I mean, this is a guy who was riding high, James. 14 wins at Western Michigan, playing in a January 1 bowl game. Minnesota brings him in, and he does a really good job, in my opinion, the first couple of years. We talked about it last night, the kids that he had with Tanner Morgan and Tyler Johnson and Ufalele. What was the tackle's name?
You're talking about Falele.
Falele. Mafe at the defensive end. I mean, they had some really talented guys in there for a year or two. We're playing some really good football, and now we're losing to Northwestern, struggling to beat Louisiana, and then getting curb stomped in the Little Brown Jug. Talk to me. What's going on?
I mean, there's the offensive line really did not play a good game, but I will say this with Michigan. I mean, everybody. I don't think JJ McCarthy gets. I think he gets too much credit. Really, I mean, that offensive line. I mean, there's a reason why the last 2 years Michigan has won the what's the offensive line award? I can't even think of the name of the award where they have the best offensive line in the country. Quite frankly, I look at this offensive line, it's better. I mean, it is so flippin' good. I mean, no wonder Blake Corms, who's a really good running back, is running the way he is. But that defense, I mean, you look at the corners between Johnson and what's the other guy's name? I can't even think. Plus their defensive line. They rotated 9 defensive linemen, and their blitz packages are so smart. I mean, they come out of the gates firing. And that's the one thing I wish Ohio State would do, because how many games does Ohio State come out and they've been not soft, but not crisp? I mean, it just seems like the offense is McCord to Harrison, and they're not getting that running game going. The offensive line's not making that push. I mean, their defense has had to bail them out of games. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Oh, the defense won that game yesterday against Maryland. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. If the defense hadn't played like they did, Ohio State would have lost. Okay. Jim Knowles has gotten the personnel that he needs, and for the most part, and he's gotten his scheme installed. Okay. And I'm blown away by how well
the defense is playing as a whole. I mean, this is a secondary last year that was getting torched
Yeah.
nonstop. And now they're not only, keeping guys in front of them and making plays, but they're scoring points. I mean, the defense had a pick six. They had another pick, as I mentioned earlier in the show, that took us inside the 35-yard line. And, JT Talamula had an absolutely unbelievable game. I mean, there's a reason this kid was the number one ranked defensive lineman in the country. And, he showed it yesterday. He was in the backfield the entire game. I'm still kind of waiting on Jack Sawyer to do something, anything at all. He was in the backfield a little bit yesterday, but, JT Talamula was, the real deal. And the linebackers yesterday did not have their best game for the Buckeyes. Eichenberg made some misreads. I mean, he still had 13 tackles, but there were plays where he ran in the wrong gap and he was not in his coverage zone, and that bothered me a little bit. But as a whole, I give the defensive effort an A for what they did against Maryland, and they're going to need that when they play a team like your team played yesterday in Minnesota. They're going to beat Michigan. They're going to have to stop them from running the football.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to get in the backfield. I mean, especially against a really good offensive line, they're going to have to show up.
I mean, you look at it. I mean, the running game at Ohio State just hasn't been crisp this year. I mean, heck, it was 33 for 62, 1.9. If you take out the sacks, they were at 2.9 yards a carry. And when have you seen Ohio State rushing attack be that soft? And it's not the running back's fault. It's their offensive line is not opening the holes. And Ryan Day was trying to make fetch work yesterday, constantly running on first down. And what scares me is, Abuka is just not having the type of year you're expecting from him. I mean, quite frankly, I think Cade Stover is their number 2 target right now on that offense. And they can't have the Randy ratio with Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, he had 15 targets yesterday. If he goes down, what the hell do you do unless Abuka steps up?
Yeah, I mean, Abuka's had a really good game against Notre Dame, and they were doubling Harrison a lot. And even when they were playing zone, they were having somebody man Harrison, and that's why Abuka had such a game. But they're going to have to get Carnell Tate more involved. I know he's just a freshman, but he's got the big play capabilities, and they've got to start getting him the ball more.
I really did JSN
that.
with his freshman year.
Right. They need that game from him where he's got, 85, 90 yards. They need to start feeding him the football. I think Cade Stover is the most underrated tight end in all of college football. Do you agree with that? No one even really talks about this kid outside Columbus.
Honestly, the play I keep going back to is that touchdown play where they did that rollout, that naked boot to Stover for the touchdown, where he really sold it hard that he was coming across from a block and then cut out. He was all by himself. I mean, the Maryland had no chance on that one whatsoever because they were overplaying Harrison so much.
James, 2 years ago, this guy was playing linebacker in the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
The year before that, he was a defensive end. He's only played tight end. This is only his second year, really, of playing tight end. And that's why, to me, I can't believe I'm saying this, but he might be the most talented tight end I've seen at Ohio State in the last 10 years.
I was going to say the same thing. I put him ahead of Ruckert right now.
Yeah.
I look at it, and he really, honestly, I mean, granted, I'm going to age myself a little bit here, but people remember the name Ricky Dudley.
I sure do. He played basketball and football.
Yeah, he reminds me a lot. I mean, is he as strong as Ricky Dudley? No. But is he as good as Ricky Dudley? Yeah, I believe. I mean, and Ricky Dudley went in the first freaking round.
Yeah, and had a really good career in the NFL for the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, he runs great routes. I mean, it was so impressive how much he set that route. I mean, go back and rewatch that touchdown and how much he set that play up. He scored that touchdown. McCord just happened to throw the ball to him, but that touchdown was all Cade Stover.
They go to him a lot when they need a play. Okay. Yeah. And they've got the best wide receiver in all of the country. but a lot of time when they need a play, they go to Kate Stover.
Yeah.
And that to me, says it all right there. But all I've heard is that, the Ohio State offense is no good this year and the Ohio State offense is really struggling. Do you know who's leading the Big Ten in yards per game?
Ohio State.
434.4 yards per game. So they're going to keep getting better. They're going to keep improving. And I'm not worried about the offense at all. I guess I'm not going to say that. I was worried a little bit yesterday in the first half.
I want to see Kyle McCord come out of the gates flying. Yeah. That's what I want to see. I don't want to see this first quarter meandering crap. I want to see him come out and be crisp right away because guess what? Michigan's doing it.
Yeah. No, they are. And they've got to get better. But I'm just not really as concerned. The thing that I'm hanging my hat on is this defense. They're playing really good. Let's talk a little bit about the West Coast, though, because we have not hit on the West Coast. And honestly, the Pac-12 is probably the best conference from top to bottom this year, hands down. And, a really big game yesterday for UCLA playing Washington State, who's been really, really fabulous all year long. And talk to me a little bit about what you thought about that UCLA victory over Wazoo.
You look at the score 25-17 and you thought it was a close game. Quite frankly, this was a curb stomping. I mean, Washington State had 11 first downs, 216 total yards, only 204 yards passing, 12 yards rushing, and they turned the ball over 4 times.
And this is a team that's been rolling on offense.
Yeah.
Especially the quarterback, our boy from Incarnate Word, Cameron Ward. He's been lighting it up, James. Why was UCLA able to slow them down?
Well, I look at their front seven. I think they're probably one of the most underrated front sevens defensively in the country, and they really put some serious pressure. I mean, UCLA used to be always the kind of Showtime team where it was all about making big plays. Honestly, they're playing like they're already in the Big Ten defensively. Offensive line, I still think needs a lot of work to do. I mean, Dante Moore put up a lot of yards yesterday, but 50% completion percentage. I mean, really, it was their running game with Carson Steele, the Kent State transfer, who really stole the show. I mean, that guy is so good on on after contact yards that people really don't talk about him. He's a gritty type of player, but I mean, when you outgain a team almost 2.5 to 1 on the ground and win the turnover battle, you're going to win games. They had 97 plays from scrimmage offensively yesterday. How this game was only an 8-point game is shocking to me.
I've never heard of that.
97 in this. I mean, they've restricted the way they've done the clock now, and they got 97 plays. I mean, this is impressive.
Very, very. And, I think Coach Kelly has done a really good job. I mean, think about what UCLA was when he took over out there. It was a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
He's made this team competitive. And even, the first year after they lose their 5-6 year starting quarterback and Dorian Thompson-Robinson, I expected them to maybe take a step back. And, I don't know. I think they're getting better. It looks like each week, as you mentioned up front, they're getting the job done. So kudos to Coach Kelly and UCLA for how they're playing right now. And the other game that maybe some people didn't take a specific interest in, but I certainly did, was Fresno State and Wyoming. Two teams that have been playing really good football. And I still think a lot of people who maybe don't know about that conference picked Fresno State to win this game, and that wasn't so. Talk to me about your thoughts about Wyoming taking down undefeated Fresno State.
Playing in War Memorial is one of the toughest things to do. I mean, you look at their record right now, they're 5-1. Their one loss was at Texas, they were in the game for a majority of the game until the fourth quarter when Texas really put their foot down.
Yep.
But honestly, I look at this game as next week, where Wyoming travels to Colorado Springs to play the Air Force Academy, on really defining who's going to be playing in the Mountain West Championship, because you look at, who the teams out there right now that could be playing in a BCS Bowl. I mean, you were looking at Fresno State Air Force, because there's nobody in the American that blows your socks away.
No.
Now Wyoming winning that game, could Wyoming be one of those teams?
I think so. I mean, I like their schedule. I mean, if you recall, they beat Texas Tech in the season opener, which surprised a lot of people, including myself. And then they, played really. I mean, the score didn't look great at the end of the Texas game, but it was a lot closer than what that score looked like. And then, to beat a ranked Fresno State team yesterday is huge. And if they can get another win next week against Air Force, now we're pulling for the Falcons around here.
Oh, but, absolutely.
If they do win that game, that'll be another pelt on the wall and push them forward. So
I think that's going to be an incredibly low scoring game. I mean, Craig Bohl runs really good defenses. I mean, granted, for the older fans, you may have remembered the 2001 Nebraska game when Craig Bohl is a DC, where Colorado almost jumped a 70 spot when Nebraska was number 1 in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, Craig Bohl has done an incredible job at North Dakota State. You may have heard them. They win a few games in the 1AA ranks and a few national championships. And look what he's done at Wyoming. I mean, it is he's created an image in Laramie, and I'm looking forward to watching that game next week in Colorado Springs.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Let's talk a little bit, just a second, about the other 2 games out west that kind of stuck out to me. Colorado, Arizona State, USC, Arizona. Colorado, we kind of expected them to win this game. I didn't expect it to be this close. What were your thoughts about the Buffs getting another one against Arizona State with a late field goal?
That's the type of win they needed. I look at it, and like we said before at the beginning of the season, I thought getting to 4 wins for Colorado was going to be huge with all the change that has happened in that organization. But they went on the road into Tempe and won that game. Yeah, was it closer than expected? Heck, sometimes you just don't play well, and Colorado found a way to win. Like we said before, if they make a bowl game this year and they don't give Deion Sanders Pac-12 Coach of the Year, I don't know what more it can take, because Colorado was a dumpster fire last year. I mean, everybody could score on them. Heck, my son's 8th grade football team could score on them. And look at what he's done in 1 year, possibly a bowl game in Boulder.
Yeah, no, they're gonna go to a bowl game. I mean, they are already, nearing bowl eligibility. They're 4-2.
Yeah,
and they've played a very tough schedule so far. I mean, they played Oregon, they played USC. They're going to get to 6 wins. There's no doubt in my mind that they get to 6 wins. And I said it before the season: if they win 6 games, he's the Coach of the Year. And they're going to win 6 games. They play Stanford next week. Then they travel to UCLA. I don't know about that one.
That'll be a tough one.
Oregon State's going to be tough. And then they play Arizona and then finish with Washington State and Utah. So they still have some tough games. But
I know. That's why I said getting that 6th win, they got to win at Arizona, because I mean, granted, Travis Hunter's going to be coming back soon, but holy crap. The Pac-12 is just so deep this year. It is such a good conference. I mean,
which was on display again in the USC game.
Yeah.
Who said that Arizona was going to lead for most of the game and then, almost beat USC? 3 overtimes it took USC to beat Arizona. James, come on, man.
Well,
why is USC ranked number 9? Talk to me about it, because they're 6-0. Is that why?
Well, because they're 6-0, and they've got an offense that is unreal. But I'm sorry. And by the way, this game
you got to play both. You got to play both sides, right? I thought you had to play offense and defense.
That their defense. I mean, how Alex Grenick has still got a job is shocking to me. They got to make a move defensively to bring in a new defensive coordinator, because they can't just drop 40 points every game. At some point, things are going to go sideways. And I mean, hell, Arizona, they weren't playing this game in Tucson. They're playing this game in the Coliseum.
Yeah. And the Wildcats ran for over 200 yards and 5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
and then threw for over 300 yards. I mean, it was like run, pass, didn't matter. They were getting points and getting yards, and honestly, USC won this game because they have Caleb Williams, but that was ridiculous. And this is the second week in a row that we've watched this defense give up over 40 points to teams that they should have had no business doing so.
I mean, and Jaden DeLauro wasn't starting at quarterback.
No.
I mean, I look at this and I'm like, USC has. I mean, there was a lot of people picking USC to be in the college football playoff. I'm sorry, unless they're going to drop a 70 in a game, they're not going to win a game in the CFP because their defense is just that bad.
No, and we saw that last year once they went up a pretty decent Tulane team in the Sugar Bowl and got rolled. So
yeah.
I can see that happening again. Let's look a little bit ahead to next week. Which games are really sticking out to you? I think you got to look at Oregon, Washington. That's a 3:30 ABC game. Both teams 5-0. I'm going to be heading to Tennessee, Texas A&M, which is going to be kind of an interesting game. You got USC, Notre Dame. You got Miami, North Carolina. You got Kentucky, Missouri. Which games are you most interested in next week, James?
From a group of 5 perspective, we already talked about it. Wyoming Air Force, I think, is going to be a very hot game because that could dictate who's going to be playing in a BCS game. But after that, I would have to lean heavy on that USC Notre Dame game. Yeah. How Notre Dame responds back after the Ohio State and Louisville loss. I mean, they're going up against the USC defense, which is, Swiss cheese. So I think Estime is going to have a pretty heavy game. But you and I both know SC is going to put up some points too as well. And they've got talented guys on that receiving core. I mean, quite frankly, outside of Ohio State, USC's probably got the second strongest receiving core in the country.
Yeah, I could see Notre Dame winning this game.
I really could.
No one's giving them a chance or giving them any credit, especially after the loss. The loss yesterday where they got curb stomped by Louisville. But I could see Notre Dame winning this game, and that's just because their defense is better than what USC has been going up against, and I could see them potentially slowing down that Trojan offense.
From a pure TV standpoint, though, Washington, Oregon, for the casual fan, is going to be an awesome game to watch.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, those are two teams. I mean, Oregon is just so good on the line of scrimmage. I mean, I cannot express enough, and they've got so much speed. And then, heck, you look at Washington, I mean, bombs away with Michael Penix. And if you don't spend enough time watching him, he can run. I mean, people saw that at Indiana. He's not running as much this year, but he can run. And that's going to be, I mean, Husky Stadium, when that place is rocking, I mean, that upper deck is shaking.
Yeah, I that's why I mentioned that game first.
Yeah.
To me, if I'm going to be over here going to the A&M Tennessee game, but if I had a plane, that's the game I would be at because I think that's going to be a good one.
Oh, 100%. I mean, have they put out the let me see if they've even got odds out for it yet. I would have to say Washington would probably be predicted to win, but it'd be tight.
They've got ESPN has Oregon predicted as the winner.
Really?
Yeah, and their matchup predictor. I don't know. I don't see a line here, but that's who they've got slated as the winner, which is weird because Washington's ranked higher than them, and they're at home.
I mean, honestly, you look at that game. I mean, I think the over/under. I think 70 points between the two of them, and they both got decent defenses. That's the thing. But their offenses are just so good. I mean, Bucky Irving on Oregon's side. I mean, the receiving core on freaking Washington's side. It's going to be a great game to watch.
Yeah, Oregon's averaging 557.8 yards per game. Washington's averaging 569.4 yards a game. These are two offenses that can really score some points and get some yardage. So I think that's going to be a really good game to watch. But Notre Dame, USC, Oregon, Washington, those are probably the two marquee matchups for next week.
If you had to put a bet right now on who you think won the Heisman Trophy this moment, who would you pick?
I mean, I'd have to go Penix right now.
I would too.
If I had to pick somebody, that's who I would pick, just because who has been the most consistently dominant since week 1 up to today. I would take Penix.
I mean, quite frankly, I look at it right now, and if you only send 3 people, they would all be Pac-12 quarterbacks. I would say Penix, Williams, and Nix would be going to New York.
I agree with that.
This is a testament of how good the Pac-12 is this year, and it's the last year of the Pac-12.
We didn't even talk about Oregon State.
Yeah, I know.
Who dropped 51 points yesterday. I mean, I know Cal isn't really a defensive juggernaut, but this is a quarterback who Clemson wanted to get him out of town, and he throws for 5 touchdowns yesterday. And he's been doing it every week, James. DJU has consistently been playing really good football, and I'm very happy for him, because they blamed everything that went down last year at Clemson on this kid. It was all a quarterback problem. People that don't know shit about football, that's what they said. I think he's proven those people wrong.
Well, hell, Clemson had to struggle against Wake yesterday.
Oh yeah,
I mean, I look at this Pac-12 conference and I'm like, you could finish 6th and legitimately be a top 15 team.
Oh, there's no doubt. This is the best I've seen. This is what makes it so sad. This is the best I've potentially ever seen the Pac-12 conference, and it's no more. And
yeah,
that to me really bothers me, because I mean, I'm all, I'm a Big Ten guy. I'm kind of glad that the Big Ten is grabbing some of these teams and making themselves stronger. I think they've got to do it moving forward, just based on what the other conferences are doing. But at the same time, it makes me sad that the Pac-12 is no more. Especially, they picked a hell of a year to get rid of the Pac-12.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's crazy how good this conference has looked all year long. I mean, it's just it's so deep. I mean, Colorado has the potential of finishing 8th and being a top 25 team.
Oh, no doubt. There's no doubt. So, all right. Well, good enough. Week 6, college football is in the books. We got week 7 coming up. As we just mentioned, huge matchup out west with Oregon and Washington in Washington. And then also the Notre Dame USC game, which is, where's that one at?
In South Bend.
At South Bend, yeah. And Notre Dame's coming off a tough physical game. So I know, Coach Freeman's gonna be on these guys all week, because he's gonna need to get a lot out of them in order to win this game. And I know they didn't like how that. I could see. I mean, you saw the guys on the bench last night. They were they had their heads down. Some of them were covering their faces with towels. Like they were embarrassed by the way they got their asses kicked.
And they should be.
Louisville.
I mean, they literally. I mean, that score was not indicative of how that game was. I mean,
No.
Louisville just stuck it to them, but it's a testament to Jeff Brom. I mean, I think he's probably one of the most underestimated coaches in America today, and he will never leave Louisville ever again.
Yeah, I never say never with coaches.
Well, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, you get a bag of money. You can go somewhere.
He was making $8.59 million a year to live in West Lafayette, and God love him, because West Lafayette's a boring ass place. He took less money to go home.
Yeah, I don't blame him. I would take less money to leave West Lafayette, Indiana myself.
Oh my God, that's such a boring city.
It's a horrible place to live, but good for him.
Hey.
I did not. Once again, it's kind of like Washington last year. I didn't really expect, or TCU last year. I didn't expect in year 1 those coaches to have an impact. But the way that way college football is now, and the way that you can use the portal, the way that you can bring guys with you and sculpt your team with guys that are already developed, it doesn't take quite as long to get things rolling. And we've seen that happen time and time again.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, bud. Have a good one. Thanks for your efforts. I will talk to you again real soon, and we will move on. College football week number 7.
You got it. Talk to you then.
Keep them up.
Later.